abandoned and alone. Until humanity came like thunder part 5-6 months after the Battle of Kepler 442c, the galaxy was different. Stories spread through every trading post and colony about the humans who crossed impossible distances to save their own. About an admiral who disobeyed orders because it was the right thing to do. About 12 colonists who refused to surrender even when abandoned by everyone else. The story grew with each telling. Some versions were accurate, others were exaggerated, but the core truth remained the same. Humans kept their promises and protected their people. On Earth, the political landscape had shifted dramatically. The government that had authorized Admiral Kangmin's mission found itself overwhelmingly popular. Other nations wanted to be part of this new human identity. Unity movements that had struggled for decades suddenly found success. People were proud to be human, proud of what their species stood for. The Galactic Union watched nervously as more colonies requested Earth's protection instead of the Union's. It started slowly. A mining colony here, a research station there, then entire planetary systems began petitioning to transfer their allegiance from the Union to Earth's colonial network. The Union Council held emergency sessions. Some members argued for sanctions against humanity. Others suggested military action to enforce Union authority. But the practical members pointed out a difficult truth. Earth hadn't conquered anyone. They hadn't forced allegiance. Colonies were choosing to align with humanity because they trusted humans more than they trusted the Union. On Kepler 442c, now officially renamed Haven's Stand in honor of those who had fought there, Ji-Wan stood in her administrator's office reviewing requests. Refugee ships arrived weekly now, bringing colonists from Union worlds who wanted to live under Earth's protection. The colony that had once held 3,000 beings now housed nearly 10,000, with more arriving every day. "We need to expand the residential sections again," Hyejin said, studying the population projections. "At this rate, we'll be at capacity within 3 months." Ji-Wan nodded. "Put in a request for more construction materials from Earth. They've been good about sending supplies." Minho entered with a Velorn doctor named Tai Yang trailing behind him. "Ji-Wan, Dr. Tai Yang has a proposal." The Velorn clicked nervously. His translator spoke in a soft voice. "Administrator, I have been studying human emergency medical techniques. They are different from Union standard procedures. More direct, more aggressive, but also more effective. I would like to establish a training program to teach these methods to non-human medical personnel throughout the sector." "That's a great idea," Ji-Wan said. "But why ask me?" "Because it will be the first formal educational exchange between humans and other species outside of Union oversight. It will require official approval." Ji-Wan thought about it. 6 months ago, she had been a simple engineer trying to keep old equipment running. Now she was helping shape how humans and aliens interacted. The responsibility was overwhelming, but she wouldn't trade it for anything. Approved. Coordinate with Minho to set up the program. Similar conversations were happening across the human colonial network. Agricultural techniques were being shared. Engineering innovations were being taught. Cultural exchanges were becoming common. Earth wasn't hoarding knowledge or technology. They were sharing it freely with anyone who wanted to learn. Admiral Kangmin, now commanding the newly formed Frontier Fleet, operated from Thunderfall as his flagship. His force had grown to 20 ships, including 4 destroyers, 8 corvettes, and support vessels. They patrolled the outer colonies, responding to distress calls and defending against Cravathi raids. But something interesting was happening. Cravathi attacks were becoming less frequent. The brutal empire that had terrorized the sector for years was suddenly cautious about engaging human forces. They had learned a hard lesson at Haven's Stand. Humans fought differently than Union forces. They were more aggressive, more creative, and they didn't surrender until the battle was decided. Commander Jinha brought a report to Kangmin's office one evening. "Sir, intelligence suggests the Cravathi are consolidating their forces. They're pulling back from the outer territories, retreating." "Not exactly. More like avoiding us." Jinha smiled. "They're choosing not to operate in any system with a human presence." Kangmin considered this. "So we've created a safe zone without firing a shot." "Looks that way. The colonies under our protection haven't seen a Cravathi raid in 2 months. It was working. Earth's strategy of standing firm and protecting the weak was actually changing the balance of power in the sector. Other species noticed. If humans could deter the Cravathi, Maybe alliance with Earth was safer than alliance with the Union. But not everyone was happy about these changes. On the Union capital world, the Council debated Earth's growing influence. A faction of conservative members argued that humanity needed to be controlled before they became too powerful. Ambassador Kresh, who had tried to stop Kangman's operations months earlier, stood before the Council. The human problem grows worse daily. They now control 23 colony worlds and have defense treaties with 40 more. Their fleet expands monthly. They ignore our regulations and operate independently of Union authority. What do you suggest? The Council chair asked. Economic sanctions, trade restrictions. We must make it clear that independence from the Union has consequences. But a newer Council member, a Velorn representative named Sunwoo, stood to object. I disagree. I am from Havenstand. I was there when the Union abandoned us to the Krivathi. I was there when humans came to save us. You speak of controlling Earth, but I ask you this. What has the Union done to earn loyalty? Earth offers protection and asks nothing in return. The Union demands tribute and abandons those who cannot pay. Which system would you choose? The Council chamber erupted in argument. The traditional powers wanted to maintain control. The outer colony representatives wanted change. The debate raged for hours without resolution. Meanwhile, G1 received an unexpected visitor. A Union trade vessel requested permission to land at Havenstand. It carried a delegation of merchants and business leaders who wanted to establish direct trade relationships with Earth's colonial network, bypassing Union trade regulations entirely. We've been watching what you're building here, the lead merchant explained. She was a crystalline Aetheri named Heian. Free exchange of knowledge, open markets, protection without exploitation. This is how trade should work. The Union takes a cut of everything and provides little in return. We want to work directly with human colonies. Jiwon consulted with Daeho. The old Velorn had become her most trusted advisor. What do you think? I think this is bigger than simple trade, Daeho said. If we allow this, we're creating an alternative economic system. The Union will see it as rebellion, and if we refuse, we lose an opportunity to improve life for everyone in our network. Jiwon made her decision. Approved. But we need to be smart about this. We're not trying to destroy the Union. We're trying to build something better. The trade agreement was signed. Within weeks, merchants from across the sector were bringing goods to Havenstand and other human colonies. Prices dropped. Quality improved. Colonists who had struggled to afford basic supplies suddenly had access to everything they needed. Earth watched these developments and made their own decision. If the Union wouldn't reform, then humanity would build an alternative, not through conquest or force, but through cooperation and mutual benefit. The Terran Colonial Alliance was officially established. Any colony could join regardless of species. Members received military protection, economic support, and technological assistance. In return, they agreed to basic principles. No slavery, no exploitation, peaceful resolution of disputes, and mutual aid in times of crisis. 40 colonies joined in the first month. 60 more in the second month. By the end of 6 months, the alliance included over 200 worlds. Most were small colonies and outposts, but they represented millions of beings who had chosen Earth's model over the Union's. The Union Council finally admitted they had a crisis. The conservative faction pushed for military intervention. We must stop this before it spreads further. Use our fleet to blockade human colonies. Force them back into compliance. But the military commanders refused. Earth's frontier fleet is small but highly effective. Their ships are more advanced than ours. Their crews are better trained. And, most importantly, they have something our forces don't have. They believe in what they're fighting for. Starting a war with humanity would be costly and might not succeed. The council chair, a pragmatic being who had held power for decades, finally spoke. Perhaps we are asking the wrong question. Instead of how to control Earth, we should ask what we can learn from them. It was a radical suggestion. The Union had existed for thousands of years. They had brought peace and stability to the galaxy. They had rules and regulations for everything. The idea that a species less than a century old might have better answers was almost insulting. But the numbers didn't lie. Crime rates in Alliance colonies were dropping. Economic productivity was increasing. Satisfaction surveys showed colonists were happier under Earth's protection than they had been under Union governance. Abandoned and alone, Until humanity came like thunder part 4. The human Marines worked through the night, setting up a field hospital and defensive positions around the colony. Medical teams examined every colonist who had endured the Cravathi occupation. Engineers from Thunderfall assessed the colony's damaged infrastructure and began repairs. Within 12 hours, New Haven looked more secure than it had in years. Jiwan watched it all with amazement. The efficiency, the organization, the genuine care the humans showed for everyone. They didn't just help their own people. They helped every colonist, regardless of species. A human doctor spent 3 hours treating a wounded Draxel. Human engineers restored power to the Etheri residential section. Human soldiers stood guard so that aliens who had been terrorized by the Cravathi could finally sleep safely. Admiral Kangman established his command center in the colony's main hall. Maps and tactical displays covered every surface. He studied reports from his officers and information gathered from freed Cravathi captives. What he learned made his anger grow. The Cravathi had raided 6 other colonies in the sector. All of them had been abandoned by the Galactic Union, just like Kepler 442c. Hundreds of colonists had been taken as slaves. Some were being transported to Cravathi labor camps. Others were being sold to the highest bidders in the galactic black market. Commander Jinha found the Admiral reviewing coordinates. "Sir, we've freed all the captives from the disabled Cravathi ships. 230 beings. Most are from this colony, but 17 are from other worlds. What about the ships that escaped? Long gone. They jumped to faster-than-light travel before we could intercept them." Jinha hesitated. "Sir, there's something else. The freed captives are telling us about the other colonies. They're begging us to help." Kangman looked at his second-in-command. "What are our orders from Earth?" "To rescue the 12 human colonists on Kepler 442c and return home." "And we've accomplished that mission." "Yes, sir." Kangman stood and walked to the window. Outside he could see Jiwan working alongside alien colonists to repair a damaged building. She was laughing at something a Valorn had said through his translator. These people had stood together against impossible odds. They had refused to surrender or abandon each other. "Jinha, how many humans are scattered across the other raided colonies?" "Based on the information we've gathered, maybe 30. Technicians, traders, a few researchers, all abandoned by the Union during the evacuations. 30 more humans who think nobody's coming for them. Sir, if we go after them, we'll be violating direct orders. We're supposed to return immediately. The Shatterpoint drives put massive stress on the ships. Command wants us back for repairs and evaluation." Kangman turned to face his officer. 30 humans, plus hundreds of aliens who have no one else to help them. The Union won't save them. The Cravathi will either kill them or enslave them. We're the only ones who can do anything." "I know, sir. But the consequences will be court-martial, probably. Maybe prison." Kangman smiled slightly. "I can live with that." "Can you?" Jinha was quiet for a moment, then straightened and saluted. "Storm's Edge, Crimson Lance, and Iron Resolve are ready for operations. Thunderfall's damage is patched enough for combat. Where do we go first?" They started with the closest colony, a mining settlement on a moon called Refuge Point. Intelligence suggested the Cravathi had left a garrison there after their initial raid. Kangman's task force jumped into the system and found 3 Cravathi warships in orbit, along with several transport vessels full of captured colonists. The battle was short and brutal. The Cravathi never expected the humans to return. They were in the middle of loading more captives when Thunderfall and the corvettes appeared. Storm's Edge destroyed 2 warships before they could raise shields. Thunderfall crippled the third with a railgun shot to its engines. The transport vessels tried to flee, but Iron Resolve caught them and forced them to surrender. Marines boarded the transports and freed 300 colonists. Among them were 7 humans, engineers who had been working on deep mining equipment. They cried when they saw the Earth insignia on the Marines' armor. Next was a research station on a planet called Greenfall. The Cravathi had occupied it and were forcing scientists to work on weapons development. Crimson Lance conducted a daring raid, inserting special forces directly into the station while Thunderfall provided orbital support. The Marines rescued 52 colonists, including 4 human researchers. Then came a trading post, an agricultural colony, a refueling station. Kangman's task force moved through the sector like a storm, hitting Cravathi positions wherever they found them. Each operation freed more captives and brought more humans home. Word spread quickly. Across the sector, colonists who had been abandoned now had hope. They saw human ships arriving to save them. They heard stories of Admiral Kangman, who disobeyed orders to help people he had never met. Even more remarkably, the rescued colonists started talking about how humans fought. They didn't just destroy the enemy and leave. They stayed to help rebuild. They shared supplies and medical care. They treated every rescued being with dignity and respect. On Kepler 442c, Jiwan had been officially appointed as the colony's new administrator. Daiho served as her co-administrator, helping her navigate the complex relationships between different species. Together they worked to rebuild New Haven into something stronger than it had been before. One evening a ship arrived that wasn't human. It was a Galactic Union diplomatic vessel. The ambassador, a tall avian being named Kresh, came to speak with Admiral Kangman. "Admiral, the Union demands that you cease your operations immediately and return to Earth." Kangman received him politely in the command center. "On what grounds?" "You are operating in Union space without authorization. You are attacking Kravathi forces without a declaration of war. You are interfering in matters that fall under Union jurisdiction. The Union abandoned these colonists. You left them to die." Kresh's feathers ruffled with annoyance. "Difficult decisions must be made during wartime. Resources are limited. The Union cannot save everyone. But humans can try." Kangman's voice was hard. "We won't stand by while people suffer when we have the power to help them. This is reckless, irresponsible. You risk creating diplomatic incidents. The Kravathi could use this as justification for broader attacks." The Kravathi were already attacking. They were raiding colonies, taking slaves, murdering civilians. What we're doing is stopping them. Kresh looked at the tactical displays showing the locations of freed colonies. "The Union Council is most displeased. They are demanding your arrest and court-martial." "Let them demand. I'm not finished here yet." The ambassador left, threatening sanctions and consequences. Kangman ignored him and continued his operations. 3 more colonies were liberated. 4 more Kravathi ships were destroyed. 60 more humans were brought home, along with nearly 1,000 aliens. Then Earth responded to the Union's demands. The message came directly from the Terran president. It was broadcast on all frequencies, ensuring that everyone in the sector could hear it. "Admiral Kangman, your actions in the outer colonies have been reviewed. Your decision to disobey orders and continue rescue operations has been analyzed. The Terran government has reached its conclusion." Kangman stood in the command center, his officers gathered around him. They waited for the court-martial order, the recall command, the end of their careers. "Admiral Kangman, you are hereby promoted to Fleet Admiral. Your command is expanded to include all Terran forces in the outer sectors. The ships under your command will be reinforced with additional vessels. Your mission is to continue protecting human colonists and any other beings who request Earth's aid. The Terran government fully supports your actions and is proud of your service." The command center erupted in cheers. Jinha was grinning like a fool. Lieutenant Yuna actually laughed out loud. Kangman just smiled quietly and nodded. But the message wasn't finished. To the Galactic Union Council, Earth makes the following statement: "We will not abandon our people. We will not ignore those who suffer. We will not stand aside while the weak are preyed upon by the strong. If this makes us difficult allies, so be it. But every human on every world will know that Earth stands with them, and anyone who stands with us will receive the same protection." The message ended. Throughout the sector, humans and aliens alike heard it and understood. Earth was declaring its independence from Union policy. It was drawing a line and daring anyone to cross it. Jiwan heard the broadcast in the colony's rebuilt communication center. She thought about that terrifying moment when the last Union ship had left them behind. How hopeless it had seemed. How certain she had been that nobody cared. She had been wrong. Earth cared. Earth had sent ships across impossible distances. They had risked everything to save 12 people on a forgotten world. And they hadn't stopped there. They had kept going, kept fighting, kept saving everyone they could find. That night, colonists from across New Haven gathered in the main square. Humans and aliens stood together. Deho spoke first, his translator converting his clicks into common language. "Before humans came, I believed the galaxy was a cold place. I believed the strong preyed on the weak and there was no justice, only survival. But I was wrong. Abandoned and alone, until humanity came like Thunder Part 3. The Kravathi war commander Tharvek sat in his command throne aboard the battlecruiser Bloodhammer, studying the tactical display with amusement. 4 small human ships had appeared in his space. 4 vessels against his fleet of 28 warships. It was insulting. "The humans make demands of us," his communications officer reported. "They order us to leave and release our captives." Tharvex laughed, a deep rumbling sound that made his bridge crew tense. He had conquered 17 worlds. He had destroyed fleets 10 times the size of this pathetic human force. These newcomers to the galaxy clearly didn't understand who they were dealing with. "Open a channel," he commanded. When the link was established, he spoke in his most contemptuous tone. "Human Admiral, I am Tharvex the Devourer. I have killed more beings than you have met in your entire life. Your 4 tiny ships amuse me. I will destroy you quickly. Then I will go down to the surface and personally execute every human on that planet. Watch your people die, human, and know that you failed them." He cut the transmission and turned to his weapons officer. "All ships, attack formation. Destroy the humans." The Cravathi fleet moved into position. Heavy cruisers formed the front line, their massive plasma cannons charging. Smaller attack craft spread out to flank. Tharvex had used this formation 100 times. It was overwhelming force, pure and simple. On the Thunderfall, Admiral Kangman watched the enemy fleet maneuver and felt no fear. He had studied the Cravathi tactics. He knew their weapons, their shields, their patterns. They fought like bullies, relying on size and intimidation. They had never faced an enemy that hit back harder. "All ships weapons free," he said calmly. "Target their heavy cruisers first. Storm's Edge, you have the left flank. Crimson Lance, take the right. Iron Resolve, stay close and watch our back. Thunderfall will break their center." His weapons officer, Lieutenant Yuna, looked up from her console. "Sir, they outgun us significantly. Their battlecruiser alone has more firepower than our entire task force." "I know," Kangman said, "but we're not here to fight fair. We're here to win. Fire when ready." Thunderfall's main railgun was a masterpiece of human engineering. It ran the entire length of the ship, a magnetic accelerator that could launch projectiles at a fraction of light speed. The tungsten carbide rounds it fired had more kinetic energy than some nuclear weapons. The first shot crossed the distance between Thunderfall and the nearest Cravathi cruiser in less than 2 seconds. The enemy's shields flared bright blue as they tried to absorb the impact. They failed. The round punched through the shields like they weren't there, struck the cruiser's hull and kept going. It exited through the other side, leaving a hole you could fly a fighter craft through. The Cravathi cruiser's reactor destabilized immediately. The ship broke apart in a brilliant explosion that lit up the darkness of space. "Target destroyed," Yuna reported, already swinging the railgun to aim at the next ship. The Cravathi fleet hesitated. They had expected an easy fight. Instead, one of their heavy cruisers had been destroyed with a single shot. Tharvex screamed orders at his subordinates. All ships were to focus fire on the human flagship. 27 Cravathi vessels opened fire at once. Plasma bolts, missile salvos, and energy beams converged on Thunderfall from every direction. The human destroyer's shields absorbed what they could, but it wasn't enough. Plasma fire splashed across the hull. Armor plating blackened and melted. Warning alarms shrieked throughout the ship. "Shields at 40%, the defensive officer called out. "Hull breaches on deck 7 and 12. Damage control teams responding." Kangman gripped his command chair as the ship shook around him. "Keep firing. Don't let up." Thunderfall's secondary railguns opened up, firing in a constant stream. Each shot was smaller than the main gun, but still devastatingly powerful. A Cravathi destroyer took 3 hits to the bridge and went dark, tumbling through space. Another ship lost its engines and began drifting. The 3 human corvettes danced through the battlefield like sharks. They were fast and agile, impossible for the lumbering Cravathi vessels to track. Storm's Edge fired a spread of missiles that overwhelmed a cruiser's point defenses. The warheads detonated against the hull, crippling the ship's weapons. Crimson Lance swooped in close to an enemy destroyer, firing pulse cannons at point-blank range. The Cravathi ship tried to turn but was too slow. It broke in half under the assault. Iron Resolve lived up to her name, intercepting missiles and covering Thunderfall's damaged sections. Her point defense systems worked overtime, shooting down incoming fire with precise laser bursts. On the ground, Jiwan and the other colonists watched the battle through the colony's sensors. They saw streaks of light in the sky as railgun rounds crossed the darkness. They saw explosions bloom like deadly flowers. Every time a Cravathi ship died, they cheered. "They're winning," Heejin breathed in amazement. 4 ships against an entire fleet and they're winning. Deho clicked his mandibles in wonder. Humans fight differently than Union forces. More aggressive, more creative. They take risks the Union would never accept. Minho watched another Cravathi cruiser explode. They're not fighting for territory or resources. They're fighting for us. That makes all the difference. In orbit, the battle reached its critical point. Tharvex had lost 8 ships. 8 against 4 human vessels. It was impossible. It was humiliating. His warriors were dying and the humans showed no sign of slowing down. Focus everything on their flagship, he roared. I want that ship destroyed now. The Bloodhammer, his massive battlecruiser, turned its full attention to Thunderfall. The ship's main plasma cannons were weapons meant to crack planets. When they fired, the beams were bright enough to be seen from the colony surface. Thunderfall's shields collapsed completely. Plasma fire raked across the destroyer's hull. Armor that could withstand conventional weapons melted like wax. Internal explosions rocked the ship. The bridge lights flickered. Shields gone, the defensive officer reported, struggling to keep the panic from his voice. Hull integrity at 60%. Fires on multiple decks. We can't take another hit like that. Kangman saw crew members looking at him, waiting for orders. Some were young, barely out of training. Others were veterans who had seen combat before. All of them were afraid. All of them stayed at their posts. Return fire, he said quietly. Main gun. Target the Bloodhammer's bridge. Sir, we only have 1 shot before they fire again, Yuna said. Then make it count. Thunderfall's main railgun aligned on the enemy battlecruiser. Power was diverted from every non-essential system. The magnetic coils charged to maximum capacity. The tungsten carbide round sat in the chamber waiting, firing. The railgun discharged with a flash of light. The round left the barrel at tremendous velocity, crossing the space between the 2 ships almost instantly. Tharvex had 1 second to see it coming on his tactical display. 1 second to realize his mistake. 1 second to understand that he had underestimated humanity. The round struck the Bloodhammer's command section dead center. It punched through the armor, through the reinforced walls, through everything. The bridge exploded. Tharvex and his entire command staff died before they could even scream. The battlecruiser shuddered and began to drift, its control systems destroyed. The remaining Cravathi ships panicked. Their commander was dead. Their battlecruiser was disabled. They had lost 12 vessels to only 4 human ships. Some tried to flee. Others attempted to regroup. None of them succeeded. The human corvettes hunted them mercilessly. Storm's Edge caught a fleeing destroyer and crippled its engines. Crimson Lance destroyed 2 attack craft that tried to make a run for the system's edge. Iron Resolve finished off damaged ships that were trying to limp away. Within 30 minutes of the battle starting, it was over. 16 Cravathi vessels were destroyed. 8 more were disabled and drifting. 4 had managed to engage their faster-than-light drives and escape. But they would carry tales of the humans who fought like demons. Admiral Kangmin surveyed the battlefield from Thunderfall's damaged bridge. His ship was hurt, but she had survived. His crew had performed magnificently. And most importantly, the humans on the planet were safe. Commander Jinha, send boarding parties to the disabled Cravathi ships. Free any captives you find. If any Cravathi crew want to surrender, take them prisoner. If they resist, deal with them. Yes, sir. Kangman opened a channel to the colony. Kepler 442C, this is Admiral Kangman. The Cravathi fleet has been neutralized. You are secure. We'll be landing within the hour. Jiwan's voice came through, thick with emotion. Thank you. Thank you so much. We didn't think anyone would come. We're human, Kangman said simply. Of course we came. The Thunderfall began its descent to the planet's surface. It was a risky maneuver for a ship of its size, but Kangman wanted to make a statement. He wanted every being on Kepler 442C to see the human warship, to understand what Earth was willing to do for its people. The massive destroyer settled onto the colony's main landing field, its engines scorching the ground. The ship's bulk dominated the landscape, a kilometer of battle-scarred armor and weapons. Ramps extended from the hull and human marines in combat gear marched out in formation. Abandoned and alone, until humanity came like thunder part 2. The message from Kepler 442C reached Earth at 3 a.m, Geneva time. The quantum signal bypassed all standard channels and triggered emergency protocols at Terran Defense Command headquarters. Within minutes, alarms were sounding throughout the military complex. Admiral Kangmin was pulled from his bed by an aide. He arrived at the command center still buttoning his uniform. The main screen showed the decoded message, and his jaw tightened as he read it. "How many humans?" he demanded. 12, sir. All civilians. Engineers, medical staff, agricultural workers. And the Union abandoned them? The communications officer nodded grimly. They evacuated priority personnel only. Our people didn't make the list. Kangman felt anger burn in his chest. 2 years ago, Earth had joined the Galactic Union with such hope. Humanity would finally be part of the greater community of intelligent species. They would share technology and knowledge. They would stand together against threats. But the Union was not what Earth had expected. It was a bureaucracy, cold and calculating. Its members thought in terms of politics and profit. When war came with the Cravathi, the Union made careful decisions about which worlds to defend and which to abandon. Mathematics and strategy guided their choices, not morality or loyalty. Humans didn't work that way. Earth had learned hard lessons from its own bloody history. Never again would they leave their people behind. It was written into law now, into the very foundation of their government. No human left behind. Not ever. The military council assembled within the hour. Generals and admirals filled the briefing room, studying tactical displays and distance calculations. The debate began immediately. Kepler 442c is 47 light-years away, General Sunhee pointed out. With standard drives, we can't get there in less than 3 weeks. By then, those colonists will be dead or enslaved. We could request Union assistance, another officer suggested. They have faster ships in nearby sectors. Admiral Kangman slammed his hand on the table. The Union already made their decision. They left our people to die. We won't ask them for anything. Then what do you propose? We can't change the laws of physics. Kangman stood and moved to the star map. His finger traced a direct line from Earth to Kepler 442c. We used the Shatterpoint drives. The room fell silent. Everyone knew about the Shatterpoint project. Experimental faster-than-light engines that folded space more aggressively than any technology the Union possessed. They could cut travel time by over 80%. But they were dangerous, barely tested, and the stress on ships and crews was enormous. The Shatterpoint drives aren't approved for operational use, Sunhee said carefully. We've only run 3 test flights, I know. I commanded 2 of them. Kangman met her eyes. It's a risk, but it's the only way to reach our people in time. You could lose your ships. You could lose your crews. And if we do nothing, we definitely lose 12 humans. Kangman's voice was hard as steel. I won't accept that. I can't. The debate continued for another hour. Costs were calculated. Risks were assessed. Political implications were discussed. But in the end, there was really only one decision Earth could make. The order was given. Mount a rescue operation. Authorization granted for Shatterpoint drive usage. Admiral Kangman would command the mission personally. Within 6 hours, 4 ships were being prepped in Earth's orbital shipyards. The destroyer Thunderfall would serve as the flagship, nearly a kilometer of armor and weapons. 3 corvettes would accompany her, Storm's Edge, Crimson Lance, and Iron Resolve. Fast attack ships, agile and deadly. Kangman walked the length of Thunderfall's main corridor as final preparations were completed. Crew members saluted as he passed. They knew the mission. They knew the risks. And every single one of them had volunteered. His first officer, Commander Jinha, fell into step beside him. Ship is ready, Admiral. All systems green. Shatterpoint drive is charged and stable. How's the crew? Nervous, but determined. Jinha smiled slightly. Nobody wants to be the person who stayed home while humans needed help. Kangman nodded. That was humanity's strength. Not superior technology or overwhelming force. It was their refusal to abandon each other. Their willingness to risk everything. For even a few of their own. Take us out, he ordered. Thunderfall and her escorts detached from the shipyards and moved away from Earth. Once they were clear of the planet's gravity well, Kangman gave the command. Engage Shatterpoint drives. Space itself seemed to tear. Reality bent and twisted as the drives punched through the normal fabric of the universe. The 4 ships vanished from Earth's solar system, leaving nothing but a brief flash of light and a rapidly dissipating energy signature. Meanwhile, on Kepler 442c, the situation was deteriorating rapidly. The Cravathi had sent landing craft down to the colony. Massive armored transports settled on the outskirts of the settlement. Soldiers emerged, 8 feet tall and covered in black battle armor. They carried plasma rifles and moved with the confidence of an army that had never lost. Their commander broadcast a new message. 50 hours remained until the deadline. Any colonist who surrendered now would receive better treatment. Those who waited would face harsher punishment. About 100 aliens gave up immediately. They walked to the Cravathi positions with their hands raised. G1 watched from the colony security center as the surrendering colonists were scanned, tagged and loaded into holding pens like animals. "We need to prepare," Taewon said. He had been a security officer before the evacuation, and now he was organizing what little defense the remaining colonists could muster. G1 agreed. She had been working non-stop since sending the distress signal. The colony's defensive shields were designed to protect against storms and radiation, not military weapons. But she had been modifying them, rerouting power, strengthening the emitters. It wouldn't stop a real assault, but it might buy them time. Hyejin had converted the hydroponic gardens into supply depots. Food, water, medical supplies, anything that might be needed. Minho set up triage areas throughout the human residential section. He trained several alien colonists in basic first aid. About 200 colonists chose to stand with the humans. Daeho was among them, despite his advanced age. When Ji-won tried to convince him to save himself, the old Valorn simply said, "If humans can have hope, so can I." The Cravathi sent scouting parties into the colony. Small groups of soldiers moving through empty streets, marking positions and identifying targets. One group approached the human section. Taewon and 5 other armed colonists met them at the barricade. The security officer held up a hand. "This area is under human protection. Turn back." The lead Cravathi soldier was massive, his armor covered in kill markings. He looked at the small group of defenders and laughed. The sound was transmitted through his helmet speakers, metallic and cruel. "You resist? 6 beings with small arms?" The soldier's voice dripped with amusement. "This will be entertaining. When the deadline passes, I will personally hunt each of you. I will make you scream before you die." Taewon didn't move. "We're still here because we're waiting for backup. If you're smart, you'll leave this planet before they arrive." "Backup?" The Cravathi soldier laughed harder. "The Union abandoned you. Nobody is coming. You are alone." "We're human," Taewon said quietly. "We're never alone." The Cravathi soldiers left, still laughing. But Ji-won saw something in their body language. Confusion. They didn't understand why the humans weren't afraid. Why they spoke of rescue when no ships were coming. Why they prepared to fight when they couldn't possibly win. 40 hours until the deadline. Ji-won checked the long-range sensors constantly. Nothing. The space around Kepler 442c was empty except for the Cravathi fleet. 30 hours. Minho was running out of medical supplies. Hyejin's food stores would last maybe 2 weeks if they rationed carefully. The shields were holding but barely. And still no sign of Earth 20 hours. Some of the aliens who had stood with them began to waver. A few left during the night, walking to the Cravathi positions to surrender. Ji-won couldn't blame them. She was beginning to doubt herself. 10 hours. The Cravathi broadcast another message. This was the final warning. Surrender now or be destroyed. Ji-won sat in the communications center staring at the silent equipment. She had sent the message 4 days ago. Earth had received it, she was sure of that. But maybe they couldn't come. Maybe it was too far, too dangerous, too expensive to save just 12 people. Minho found her there. "Still nothing?" "Nothing. They'll come," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "How do you know?" "Because we're human. Because that's what we do." Ji-won wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe Earth wouldn't abandon them, but hope was getting harder to hold on to. The deadline was 6 hours away when Yoonji, who had been monitoring the sensors, suddenly shouted, "Contact! Multiple contacts!" Her voice was shaking with excitement and disbelief. 4 ships just appeared in orbit. They're broadcasting Terran identification codes. Ji-won ran to the sensor station. On the screen, she saw them. 4 beautiful human warships, their hulls marked with Earth's insignia. A message came through. A strong, calm voice filled the communications center. "Kepler 442c. This is Admiral Kangman of the Terran Defense Fleet. We're here for our people. Hold on just a little longer. We're coming to get you." Abandoned and alone. Until Humanity Came Like Thunder Part 1. The red sun of Kepler 442c was setting when the warnings came. Ji-won was deep in the power station, her hands covered in grease as she worked on the aging generator. The colony of New Haven depended on this equipment, and it broke down almost every week now. She wiped sweat from her forehead and reached for another tool when the alarm started screaming. Every screen in the facility lit up at once. Emergency broadcasts flooded every channel. Jiwan ran to the main console and felt her blood turn cold as she read the message. Warships. Dozens of them. Krivathi Empire vessels had just entered orbit around their world. She grabbed her communicator and called Minho at the medical center. "Did you see the alert?" "I'm looking at it now." His voice was tight with worry. "This is bad, Jiwan, really bad. Everyone in the colony knew about the Krivathi. They were monsters who conquered worlds and took slaves. Their armies destroyed anyone who resisted. The Galactic Union had been fighting them for 2 years, but the war was not going well." Jiwan ran outside and looked up at the evening sky. She could see them now. Tiny dots of light that should not be there. Enemy ships, hundreds of kilometers above them, weapons pointed down at the colony. The streets filled with people. Aliens of all kinds rushed from their homes. The insect-like Valorn clicked their mandibles in fear. The reptilian Draxel hissed and gathered their younglings. The crystalline Athari hummed with distress, and the 12 humans who lived on New Haven stood among them, just as frightened as everyone else. Jiwan found Hyejin near the hydroponic gardens. Her friend was staring at her datapad with wide eyes. "The Union knows," Hyejin said. "They detected the Krivathi fleet. They're sending evacuation ships." For a moment, Jiwan felt relief. Then she saw Hyejin's expression and knew something was wrong. "What is it?" "Read this." Hyejin handed her the pad. The message was from the Galactic Union Emergency Command. Evacuation ships would arrive within 12 hours. Priority boarding would be given to Union officials, military personnel, skilled workers with critical certifications, and citizens of core member worlds. All others would be accommodated as space allowed. Jiwan read it 3 times. "We're not on the priority list. No, Earth is too new to the Union. We don't have seniority rights yet." Hyejin's voice shook. "We're Category 5, the lowest tier." That night, nobody slept. Jiwan gathered with the other humans in the common area of their residential block. All 12 of them sat in a circle. Minho was there with his medical bag, always prepared. Hyejin brought food nobody wanted to eat. Taewon, their security officer, cleaned his sidearm nervously. Young Yunji, barely 20 years old, was crying quietly. Daiho, the colony administrator, came to see them. The old Valorn moved slowly on his 6 legs. His translator box spoke in a gentle voice. "I have argued with the Union representatives. I told them you humans work harder than anyone. You keep our power running, our people healthy, our crops growing. They do not care." "What did they say?" Jiwan asked. "They said difficult decisions must be made in war. Resources are limited. Some must be left behind." Daiho's antennae drooped. "I am ashamed of my government." The evacuation ships arrived before dawn. Massive transports dropped from the sky and landed on the main field. Union soldiers secured the perimeter. Officials set up processing stations. Lines formed immediately, thousands of colonists desperate to escape. Jiwan and the others stood in line for 6 hours. When they finally reached the processing station, a board official scanned their identification chips and shook his head. "Category 5. Wait over there. We'll call you if space is available." They waited. Ship after ship filled with passengers and launched into orbit. Union officials boarded first, carrying luggage and personal items. Military officers followed. Skilled workers with the right certifications were waved through. Citizens of important worlds received priority processing. The humans watched hundreds of others board, aliens who had arrived on New Haven years after them. People with connections or credits to pay for better placement. But the 12 humans stayed on the ground. Minho approached a Union supervisor. "Please, we've been here for 3 years. We've served this colony faithfully. Your service is noted in your file," the supervisor said without looking up. "Wait for the final transport." The final transport came in the afternoon. By then, most of the colony was empty. The Krivathi ships were closer now, visible without magnification. The Union supervisor checked his list one last time and shook his head. "No more space. We're at capacity. You can't leave us here," Taewon shouted. "We're Union colonists." "You're Earth nationals," the supervisor said coldly. "Your planet joined the Union only 2 years ago. You don't have full member privileges yet. Take it up with your government." The last ship lifted off. G1 watched it rise into the sky and dock with the transport vessels in orbit. Within an hour, the entire Union fleet engaged their faster-than-light drives and vanished. They were gone. The colony was empty except for about 300 beings who hadn't made the priority lists. The unwanted. The forgotten. And then the Cravathi broadcast began. Every screen and speaker in the colony activated at once. A massive face appeared, covered in scars and battle armor. His voice was like grinding metal. "I am Tharvex, war commander of the Cravathi Empire. This world now belongs to us. You have 72 hours to gather in the main square and surrender. You will be processed and assigned duties as slaves of the Empire. Any who resist will be killed. Any who hide will be hunted. Any who flee will be found. You have 72 hours. Use them to make peace with your gods." The broadcast ended. Silence fell over the colony. Yunji sobbed. Several aliens collapsed in despair. Some began running immediately, fleeing into the wilderness with no plan and no hope. The colony was dying before the Cravathi even landed. But Jiwan stood still, her mind racing. She thought about Earth, about humanity, about every story she had learned in school about people who refused to quit, even when everything seemed lost. "Come with me," she said to the other humans. She led them to the communications center. The equipment was old, mostly abandoned now that everyone relied on personal devices. But Jiwan knew there was one system nobody used anymore, the old quantum transmitter, the one that could send messages across vast distances without relay stations. "What are you doing?" Minyo asked. "Calling home." Jiwan's hands flew across the controls. The system was offline, its components corroded and connections loose. But she was an engineer. She could fix anything. "Jiwan, even if you get it working, Earth is weeks away. The Cravathi will be here in 3 days." "I know." She pulled a burnt relay chip and replaced it with one from another console. "But we're human. We don't give up. Not ever." It took her 4 hours to get the transmitter operational. When she finally established a connection to Earth's colonial defense network, her hands were shaking. She typed a simple message. "Human colonists on Kepler 442c abandoned by Galactic Union. Cravathi invasion imminent. 12 humans requesting immediate assistance. We are still here. We are waiting. Please help us." She hit send and the message fired into space, traveling faster than light toward Earth. Hyejin stood beside her. "Do you really think they'll come?" Jiwan looked at her friends. 11 other humans in a colony of abandoned aliens on a forgotten world with an army of monsters about to descend from the sky. "Yes," she said firmly. "We're human. Earth doesn't leave us behind. They'll come. But will they come in time?" Jiwan had no answer for that. She only knew one thing for certain. They would not surrender. They would not run. They would stand and fight with everything they had. Because that's what humans did. Outside, the Cravathi warships moved lower in the sky, preparing for the invasion. The 72-hour countdown had begun.